Welcome to everyone to the 98th meeting of the 7th Council of the Municipality of South Dundas. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We have already had a closed session of council prior to starting tonight. Confirmation of agenda or any additions, deletions, or amendments tonight? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Mellon.
Yeah, I'd like to have a staff report on the requested drainage report that was due for this council meeting, an update on that, and also on the civic number 911 signs on cemeteries throughout South Dundas, which was brought to my attention this morning, the lack of. I'd like those two things added for discussion, if possible. Mayor Bylaw.
Okay, council have any issue with that? Okay, anything further? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, just since we had originally published the agenda, we added the September 30th National Day for Truth and Reconciliation letter from AMO. We also added a property standards order appeal for council to consider. And we amended the agenda by taking from the consent agenda fleet repairs and put it in discussion.
Okay, so the Truth and Reconciliation motion is E, property standards is G, fleet repairs are H, and then drainage update is I, cemetery 911 signs is J. Anything else from any other members of council? Okay, any disclosure of pecuniary interest, general nature thereof this evening? Okay, we do not have any minutes to adopt tonight, so we'll move on to delegations. And tonight we are happy and proud to have with us two members of our OPP force, Inspector Mark Hamerek and Staff Sergeant Simon Hardy, and they will be bringing council an update on mental health strategies in the Lakeshore speed sign. So welcome, gentlemen, to South Dundas Council.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much, councillors and staff, for having us this evening. And thank you very much for allowing us to appear in person. It will certainly avoid any technology problems like I had at my first attempt to be in front of you. Obviously I've already been in front of council and I've already provided an introduction to you about my history. So I will move right into why we were here this evening. I did provide council the last time I was here and staff an update in regards to some of the inner workings of the mobile crisis response team. I do not know if I mentioned it previously, but my two past assignments in Hawkesbury and Lanark County, I was extremely fortunate to have been part of some very successful mobile crisis response teams. And I was also very fortunate to be able to build those from the ground up. I am even more fortunate that when I came to SDNG, the mobile crisis response team, as you're well aware, was already up and running and was doing very well. That is in no small part to the incredible efforts of Staff Sergeant Hardy and PC Jim Blanchette, who sends his regards for not being able to be here this evening. And I do not think it would do the program justice for you to listen to me speak this evening about it. I will take over. I will have some final points and a request of council at the end. However, I would like to turn it over to the architect of the program and my operations manager, Staff Sergeant Simon Hardy.
Thank you, sir. Quite an introduction to follow. But Mr. Mayor, members of the council, staff, thank you very much for having us. And I'm very pleased to talk about a project and a program that I'm very passionate about. And I think I can't speak for you, but I'm sure that all of us at some point, whether personally or professionally, have been impacted by mental illness, whether it be through family members, friends, or people we know. And for so long, there's been a stigma attached to mental illness, and it's been one of the more difficult medical or health issues to navigate through. And quite often, while there are resources out there, it's difficult for people to navigate those resources and get timely and appropriate service. So I'd just like to start just by providing you with a brief history of how we got to today. As the inspector mentioned, kudos should go to Jim Blanchette, who's been working on this project for a prolonged period of time. He explored numerous avenues of funding. Everyone will agree it is a health issue. However, we chose not to stand by and wait for funding, although we're applying for it. We took a proactive approach and sought alternative funding formulas, because, as I said, Jim Blanchette sought funding from the province in various avenues, and unfortunately he wasn't successful with any of those approaches. The goals of the plan initially were to provide timely and appropriate services to the mentally ill, their families, especially the mentally ill members of the population who are in crisis. As we all know, they can when those critical situations happen, there can be often deadly consequences, and they can affect members of the public, members of family, as well as the individuals. To do that, we've never claimed that we're health professionals. We formed a partnership with the Cornwall Community Hospital and utilized their existing mental health crisis team to provide members, medical professionals with whom we could collaborate. And ultimately, we went to the United Counties of SD&G with a proposal asking for a 1-year trial, and all we asked for was 1 year. I mean, all we asked for was a substantial amount, $120,000 for 1 year, and all that was the salary of a registered nurse. I'll explain later why we went with a registered nurse model, but graciously the counties funded that program on a trial basis. The purpose, as I said, one of the main purposes of the program was to eliminate the frustration that many people feel trying to navigate the system. In some cases, it can take months to years to find the appropriate resources to deal with the mentally ill. And as I said, that's very tasking on family members, and it's very tasking on the individuals who are in crisis and experiencing this medical condition. Our goal is to eliminate a lot of that wasted time and try to put the person in contact with the appropriate services, if not immediately, almost immediately. And then if need be, the nurse would, in the cases where an assessment at the house or wherever the individual comes in contact with police, if the assessment can't be made at the scene or with some follow-up appointments and they do need to go to the hospital, the nurse and the officer who's assigned to patrol with the nurse would go to the hospital. And as we'll see later, just those contacts that the nurse has with the area hospitals, primarily Cornwall Community Hospital, eliminates a lot of that waiting time and the stigmatization with mental illness. And it's proven to be extremely successful. When I speak of stigmatization as well, I mean, quite often and historically, people who are in crisis and or their family members would call police as the first point of contact. Even though, as I stated previously, it was not necessarily a police matter, we are generally called to situations when people have no one else to call. And quite often there'd be cruisers. It would be embarrassing at times the family members and or the individuals. And the approach we take now is, as I said, there's the officer and the nurse who approaches the house. And a secondary benefit of that is not only does it reduce the stigmatization of mental illness in the public, but also for our officers, it's allowed our officers to gain greater insight into the field of mental illness. And it's also provided an opportunity, should they require it, that our officers can approach the nurse at their convenience if they either want to gain further insight, as I said, into mental illness, and or if they themselves are experiencing difficulties or concerns, they have an opportunity or another resource to speak to someone, thus improving their mental well-being as well as providing a healthier workforce. As I mentioned previously, by choosing the appropriate resources and making those contacts, it reduces, it doesn't only provide better service to the individual and their families, but it also reduces the strain on emergency departments, allowing for people who seek medical attention for other matters to be seen more promptly, and thus reducing the cost and strain on our existing medical system. I'd just like to share a quick story just to prove the efficiency of, or the success of this program. There's an individual who in a 2-year period had approximately 120 contacts with police, and our nurse reached out to this individual after a series of interactions and put that person in contact with the appropriate agencies to help that individual. And since that time, I'm happy to report that there's been no contacts with police. Because quite often, whether it be criminality or calls for service from a police perspective, the root cause isn't always getting addressed. And quite often, people are being placed in the criminal justice system when, in fact, the root cause of their criminality was mental illness. And if we can strive to eliminate that, it's better for society, it's better for the individuals involved, and it's a success story all around, as this success story demonstrates. So as I said, we last September we got full funding, and we operated on a Monday to Friday, general business hours, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. With our excellent relationship with Cornwall Community Hospital, we were able to gain further funding thanks to the hard work of the hospital, and we were able to obtain coverage 7 days a week. So 2 other nurses were hired to cover the weekends, alternating weekends, which is fabulous. That being said, from the onset, one of our main goals was sustainability. As wonderful as this program has been in our minds, and we've received many favorable comments from members of the public, other councils, and people that have been involved with the program. It's fruitless if we can't continue those efforts. At the end of the day, do we believe it's a Ministry of Health or another responsibility to fund these programs? Absolutely. However, we adopted the ideology that we wanted to keep this program going. So we continued to review the program every three months approximately. So whether it was staffing, initially we had 2 officers per platoon. Our ideology behind that was that it would expose further officers to the world of mental illness and gain a greater insight for them, and it would provide opportunities. As we evolved, we reduced it to there's 2 assigned officers now. It creates some continuity, familiarity with the nurses, and it provides the best service to the members of the public. We're continuing to search for grants. There's currently a ministry mobile crisis response team enhancement grant that is only applicable to existing mobile crisis response team programs. So we're in the process of applying for that. PC Blanchette is working diligently to obtain base funding from the Ministry of Health. And we have appeared before County Council, again, to provide them with updates and seek further funding to get us through to the end of this year. As I said, our passion for this program is what's driving us. We see the success of it, and as police officers, we should be in this profession because we want to help people. I mean, it's often it sounds cliche. However, as you can see, the gray in my beard, I may have been around a little while, and quite often, I mean, it gets, I get frustrated, I would get frustrated for some of the individuals that we would be in frequent contact with, because we're well aware that whatever actions they were taking was not solely based on, you know, they weren't, it was their mental illness that was driving them, and unfortunately we weren't able to step in, and finally I see a program where we can step in and we can help the individuals need, some of the most vulnerable members of society. Just to provide you with a brief insight into how our calls are broken down. There are obviously, if there are calls for service where an individual is in crisis and it's possible for the officer and the nurse to respond, they will respond directly to the scene and attempt to de-escalate the situation and provide an assessment at scene. However, if you see, that's the portion of the graph that's in gray. The orange or rust-colored portion is referrals that we receive from the hospital as to possible individuals who could benefit from inclusion in our program. And the blue part is what I'm most proud of, is that it's from the onset we sought buy-in from our officers. As I said, it's an education piece for a lot of them. So when we encourage officers when they go to calls for service that may not necessarily be a mental health call. It could be a neighbor dispute, it could be a mischief, it could be a family dispute. However, as I stated previously, a lot of the root causes of these calls for service are mental illness. We encourage the officers to contact either PC Blanchette and or the nurse or assigned officers to provide them with individuals who could benefit from follow-up. So the majority of the work of the nurse is conducting proactive follow-up, reaching out to these individuals or their families, conducting visits at their homes. As I mentioned previously, the reason we went with the registered nurse model is that in a rural or semi-rural setting, a lot of the services aren't always available to our clients or citizens. And when the registered nurse does go to the house, they can do a review of the medication. In many cases, these individuals have not been to doctors for, or they've had numerous doctors over several years, so they have medications that are contradicting one another, which increases their psychosis. And the registered nurse can do a full review of their health, physical health, mental health, and prescriptions, which has proven to be a great benefit. And they all are, we also have, they're called roll-ups, so on a daily shift there'll be a roll-up or summary of our calls for service. The officer and the nurse will review these calls for service and look for opportunities to make contact with people who could possibly benefit from this program. And as I said, that's one of the parts that I'm proudest of, is that our officers have changed their mindset for the most part and are participating fully in this program, and credit should go to them as well for buying in. There is obviously financial benefits to this program, although I personally, we always have to be considerate of the financial implications. Personally, I'm most buoyed by the human benefits of this program. However, we often hear about wait times at hospitals, and when this program started, our average wait time, meaning the time that our officers say they had to apprehend somebody would have to wait until they were cleared from the hospital, was almost 3 hours, 2.9 hours. Currently, it's at approximately 1 hour, and that's over a year, and it continues to decline, which, as I mentioned previously, not only benefits the entire health system, but it does allow that individual to acquire the medical attention they need that much quicker. Furthermore, our involuntary apprehensions, meaning exactly what it says, that whereby we have to remove somebody against their will and transport them to hospital, are down by 42.5%, and the diversions are up 45%. That meaning the people are placed in contact with the appropriate agencies are up 45%, which again are staggering statistics in not even, well, almost a year, exactly a year. So I'll just pass it over to the inspector now, who can speak further about the financial savings.
So I am going to echo what Staff Sergeant Hardy said in regards to we both are very passionate about this program. And our passion comes from the people that it is serving. It does not come from any statistic or what I'm about to talk to you about next. However, we are both realists. We both realize that policing is very expensive. The next most, and right ahead of that is healthcare. And what I'm about to present to you is just a snapshot with some very basic data that we have collected over the last 10 months. But I want to give you an example of the United County's investment and what it has saved the total system. So in regards to savings, when we look at the total, and in order to come up with these numbers, I only used 4 metrics, and these are exact metrics. They come directly from the OPP and directly from the Ministry of Health. So they are accurate along with our own OPP statistics. And those metrics are when we attend the hospital with what we call an involuntary apprehension. Previous to the inception of the mobile community response team, we would have 1 physician's consultation, 1 on-call psychologist or psychiatrist consultation, 2 nurses, and 2 police officers. Based on the calls for service that we had with the 2.9 hours of wait time, the average that it was costing the police and the hospital, now this is just base salaries, was $187,225.29. Now I'm sure everybody could appreciate that not every one of those calls ran during regular business hours. You could multiply that number multiple times by 1.5 times when you're paying nurses and police officers' salary. We don't count incidental costs like the incredible costs that it costs to run a hospital. We didn't bring in administrative costs. We didn't bring in costs like fuel, transportation, wear and tear on our vehicles, and any other associated costs with these. So the second one is at the inception of the MCERT, where it brought it down to that 1 hour wait time. Now I removed one of the nurses at the hospital because we have a nurse now working with our team, and we removed one of the constables, because one of the advantages of the program, having a nurse and an officer work together, is that obviously, as you've heard from Staff Sergeant Hardy, we are able to provide community-based assessments. However, when those people go to the hospital, that officer is able to relieve one of those patrol officers. Now, for those of you that have heard the OPP's billing model, it is a bit of black magic, and it can be a bit confusing at times, to say the least. I may have heard the presentation at least 28 times myself, and probably could not properly regurgitate it to you still to this point. But I do have an idea that it is based on 4-year averages, and they are province-wide averages. So when I talk to you about we are bringing officers back to the road, I don't talk about immediate dollar savings, I talk about efficiencies. When I talk about efficiencies, I talk about priorities that we get from the people in this room, we get from our community citizens, and that we form ourselves, that we can reinvest into proactive policing. So just to give you an idea that at the inception of the mobile community response team, the cost went down to $90,352.51. So when you look at the total savings of the program, because we've also had a reduction in those calls for service, the total savings to the program, when we started at that $187,000, we are saving by that 1 nurse at $120,000, we are saving that 1 nurse. So it's $120,000 a year savings. And we have added a constable and a nurse back into the system. So that is quite significant. Now, if you consider that there are over 100 police OPP detachments throughout the province, and multiple municipal services who are doing the same thing, you can see how the cost benefit would be, is tremendous, right? Now again, as Staff Sergeant Hardy said, I do not believe that this should be funded by the counties. We were incredibly lucky, and it was incredibly generous, the support, and that is, again, once again, in small part to the hard work of PC Blanchette and to Staff Sergeant Hardy selling the benefits of that program. But I do firmly believe that the Ministry of Health should be funding this program, that they should be providing that stable base funding. So as Staff Sergeant Hardy said, we will be seeking, through a business case, base funding from the Ministry of Health or from our East Health. Part of our request this evening, Mr. Mayor, councillors and staff, is that what we are seeking from council this evening is a letter of support that we can attach to that business case. We'll also be attaching, if council so chooses to do so, we'll also be attaching that letter of support to the business case to further enhance the program. Because we are convinced through our data that A, the program should remain where it is at a minimum. We should be receiving that base funding, and B, that we can prove that the enhancements are there, and that we can provide further reductions not only in the wait times, but also, more importantly, in those diversions by providing those referrals to the team where those community-based assessments happen. I'm sure we've all heard countlessly the inefficiencies that happen at hospitals, and that the most effective healthcare we can provide people are community-based assessments. Now, as a side note, I've spoken to this, Mr. Mayor and Council, when I presented to you back in the summer. The other thing I do not believe in is, I don't believe in the defund the police movement. I believe in properly fund the police movement. But I also believe in properly funding other programs. Now, as Staff Sergeant Hardy spoke to, through defunding or not properly funding other programs in the past, the police have become the de facto social workers, mental health workers, and so on and so forth. These are not our core functions. Our core functions are public safety, traffic safety, crime prevention, and supporting victims of crime. But we realize that because this has become one of our de facto roles, we have a role to play in this. And that how you counter that defund the police movement is exactly by demonstrating what we've demonstrated this evening. First of all, we demonstrate the human results. As Staff Sergeant Hardy said, we fight the stigma. We fight the stigma for the people that we are serving. We fight the stigma that is currently going on in the media, that, the evil that the police are. We fight it with numbers like this, right? We show that the police are willing to change and adapt, and that we can keep functioning while helping to show cost effectiveness. So with that, Mr. Mayor, my request to you and to council this evening after our presentation would be for, first of all, an endorsement from council and staff, and secondly, a letter simply endorsing the program and its current results and the need for stable base funding. Are there any questions?
Okay. Before I go over, turn to council for questions or comments, the two of you certainly demonstrate a passion for this work that you're doing now, especially on mental health. It's, I do agree with you, defunding police is not the answer. Doing policing right is the answer, and I think you're going down that road right now. With that, though, I will turn it over to Deputy Mayor Gardner, and she was very instrumental in ensuring that County Council supported it last year when it went through budget, and it was a challenging decision by County Council. I wasn't there that day. They finally decided, but I certainly was supporting the program. But I think there was some passionate speeches made that day to convince some of the other councillors that it was the right thing to do. So go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Bylaw. Agree absolutely with everything you've said. And I will champion this at any table I sit at. Not very often I can say I told you so, but not to you guys. I knew it was going to save money, and I actually alluded to that whenever, because I've been fortunate enough to work with folks that have gone through mental health crisis. And there is stigma attached to it, and there's stigma even at decision-making tables. So people will refer to those people or this, and I can tell you as somebody who probably didn't fit the mold, my family has had to call the OPP prior to this program on my grandmother, who was diagnosed as living with bipolar disorder in her late to early 80s. So when you talk about self-harm, a family member having to make the phone call to the last resort, and I have police officers in my family and stuff, so, you know, great respect, but to have to call you guys and ladies for assistance and just thinking, oh my goodness, my grandmother that I've loved my entire life might have to go in the back of a cruiser instead of to a hospital or dealing with a nurse. So I, for one, will always speak highly of this program. I will always speak against anybody who thinks that it's not necessary. Anybody that is arrogant enough to assume that it couldn't possibly happen to a family member. This is absolutely a tool that you need. And it's absolutely ridiculous that anyone would think it shouldn't be funded. And these conversations need to be had. I applaud the passion absolutely around this. It's a tool in your tool belt. And, you know, I've spoken to officers that have gone on hard calls where they didn't have any other option and they're watching the family and the situation and stuff. And it's absolutely heartbreaking. And the worst case is it's absolutely not necessary. Because if we give you those tools, you have them, and then we don't have to go down the wrong road. So I'm hoping that if you ever do come back to counties for funding, I will speak just as loudly. I think I hit the table my first time as a new councillor, hit the table, because it is absolutely necessary. And when you talk about our aging population who generationally possibly did not have tools for them to deal with their mental health issues, and it becomes amplified as they age, whether you talk about a young person who is self-medicating with pot, that is regularly thing, and could potentially have schizophrenia, that is something that we absolutely need our officers to have that tool in their tool belt. So you've got to definitely somebody who will line and speak and pound the table if I have to. Hopefully I don't have to. I absolutely agree with the letter of support. And absolutely, even if there's a resolution that's appropriate, I would definitely bring the motion to the table. And this is something that needs to happen. And, you know, perhaps more education as well, because I think folks don't know, it's not always a long-term illness. Sometimes it can be a critical event where it's a one-off and the person gets help and it's not that long-term thing. So yeah, I think people need to check themselves, and this arrogance or assumption that it will never happen to someone that they love or even themselves is absolutely ridiculous. So, and it's not a pandemic thing either. You guys should add that too, because I've heard people say at our last conversation at counties where they said, oh, it's been an increase because of the pandemic. And those of us that have dealt with mental health items know that it's not a pandemic thing. It's magnified somewhat, but it'll still be there long after the pandemic is gone. So I absolutely support this, and I applaud everybody's efforts.
Well, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, for that support and for your initial support to get the program up off the ground. I can tell the council that we did check in on our local data just to see about during the pandemic, and the province is reporting about a 40% uptick in mental health related calls for service. Not every jurisdiction has a program like this, and not every jurisdiction has a program that is as successful as ours. We've only reported a 2% increase during the pandemic. So we certainly attribute that to very much to the program. And as Staff Sergeant Hardy said, you know, it's really those getting that officer buy-in.
Yeah.
And the officers, you know, when we looked at that, you know, percentage or graph where it showed in blue, the officer, you know, the officer referrals, right? It's those officers recognizing, going to the calls for service, you know, seeing the family disputes and potentially recognizing that there might be an element of mental health, playing a part in that call and that referral being made. And once again, that community-based assessment, as you said, it might just be a one-off. And, you know, before it becomes an acute situation, we're connecting those people with services immediately.
It should never be a siloed approach. I have always viewed first responders, police, as our community partners. So if we live in a community where it's caring and we care for the most vulnerable in the most appropriate way and give our community partners, the folks that get the other end of the phone call, that to me makes sense. And it's even on the budget line, it will always make sense because you're cutting out probably, as you've alluded to, multiple calls, different steps, 2 officers sitting in the waiting room, not wondering why they're there because it's not something that they're, you know, so I agree.
If I
So
may,
thank you.
Deputy Mayor, I'd like to publicly thank you as well for your support. And I'm glad that you broached the topic of how it affects families as well, and that's the approach we took from the onset, that mental illness hits so many layers, not just the individual involved, but the level we acknowledge, and for those of us that have experienced that, we know that by the time a family member has to call police, they're at their wits' end, or they have no other option in many cases. And we're very empathetic and sympathetic to that, and that's why we tried to adopt an approach whereby, yes, we're trying to assist the individual who is experiencing that crisis, but we're also looking at how we can help the family members and in turn the community. And you know, I realize that this is a leap of faith, and quite often, whether it be police services or governmental agencies or what have you, when we're trying to adopt a new strategy or take something on, we have to be courageous when we're fighting the right fight. And I'll argue till I'm blue in the face that we are fighting the right fight.
Yeah.
And again, I just, in terms of timeliness, it is not a COVID-related issue. However, we have seen that frustration level experienced by many family members has been exacerbated because many of the agencies that would traditionally help people in crisis through their response models are either working from home and or not as available as they were previously. And those contacts have, again, allowed those family members to navigate some of the frustrations. But main point of my comment is just to say thank you very much for all your support. It's greatly appreciated.
You're welcome.
Councillor Lewis?
Well, gentlemen, I have to utter what Deputy Mayor Gardner has said. Through your talk here tonight, I can see that both of you have love and passion for the mental health, and I take my hat off to you. And I have no problem signing my name on a dotted line for support or whatever. Keep up the good work, and thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Councillor Wells, can you hear me?
Yes, Mayor, I can hear you.
Okay, go ahead. Any comments, questions, concerns?
No, I just thought you were saying with Deputy Mayor there, but I want to thank Inspector Hemrick and Sergeant Hardy for, there's a lot of stuff you brought to us that, like, this pilot project is just amazing. It's, numbers don't lie. So I have no problem supporting letters to the Ministry of Health and reach out to their MPP. I think it's a program that's showing tremendous results, and kudos to you guys for the all the effort you've put into it, and the passion and everything. It's saving lives. That's what it's doing at the end of the day. So no, it's a really good program, and with all these numbers that is in this pilot project that's brought forward, I cannot see the Ministry of Health not given funds, and I'm sure, like, even if they did, well, I can't see why they wouldn't, but I'm sure this is going to continue on through the counties and whoever to make sure this program goes on. So again, kudos to you guys, and you got my full support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Millen?
Yes, echoing, I guess, my colleagues, points. I think the three big things that jump out at me is the cost savings, dollars and cents, but that's sort of low on the totem pole. It also frees up our officers to be doing, as you said, your core mandate, what you're, providing for the community. But I think the most important thing is it provides the people that need this type of service, that have mental health issues and need to come in contact with somebody to help them, guide them through the times that they are, has brought them to that interaction with the nurses and with yourselves. It provides them with that opportunity to contact and make, the connection with the people they need to make the connection with. And I think that's probably the most important thing I see out of this, because unfortunately in a rural community, maybe we don't have, maybe quite the services you have in the bigger centers. And it's a benefit for the community, it's a benefit for the family, and it's definitely a benefit for the individual that may be going through that crisis point in their lives, that, it comes down to that interaction between yourselves and the nurses. And, so I think that's the biggest, you can't put a number on that. And I think that's the biggest thing. And I think in the long run, that's going to save us, the community and the individual and everybody, tenfold. So I have absolutely no problem. I would definitely endorse any resolution, any letter. I think the numbers and the human health issue, mental health issue, I think you could double that 120,000. You could triple it. In the long run, it's definitely going to be a benefit for everybody. So thank you for your presentation. Last time you were here, I asked how this program was coming, and pretty impressive, the numbers and what you have done. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
There's not much left for me to say. I think council said it all. There's certainly support of this council to give you a letter of support in your endeavors in finding funding from the province or whoever it takes. I know if it came back to counties, I think counties would still support it, but I know that in theory that this is a provincial matter that should be looked after. You've done a good job piloting it. The passion's there. I'm glad that it's not so much about saving money, it's about directing people in the right direction to save their lives in the end sometimes. So thank both of you for A, for coming to council, and B, for all the work that you do on job, whether it's with this or any other role you do as police officers.
Thank you,
So
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much.
we will add that to our discussion items as a resolution, and then we will work with you to make sure the letter is properly worded and get it out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, the Jim Blanchett's not here for Lake Shore, so that'll be Jim's job, right? All right, Jim has made the error, or maybe not the wise choice, of giving his number and his contacts to these two residents that have their concerns, along with others. So yeah, that's right. So the signs are up. They're doing the best they can. That's the way I look at it.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to action requests. First one we have tonight, and the only one, action request, is ES 2021-16 Morseburg Pathways Replacement RFQ ES 21-10.
Moved by Councillor Mellon, second by Councillor Lewis, that council accept report ES 2021-16 to award the tender for the Morseburg Asphalt Pathways Replacement RFQ ES 21-10 to Coco Paving Incorporated in the amount of $209,751.75 plus HST.
Justin Moran, welcome to South Dundas Council.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. So the report you have in front of you regarding the Morseburg Asphalt Pathways outlines our planned improvements and additions to the current pathways. I'm sure most of you are aware that the current paths have started to deteriorate and are in major need of replacement. If awarded, the plan would see just over 1 kilometer of existing pathways replaced. The current pathways have 3 different widths. The new plan would have all of them at a standard 2-meter width. These paths would be maintained in the winter, allowing residents to use them for 12 months of the year. When we went to tender, there were a few provisional items included for the contractors to bid on in the hopes of having additional pathways constructed. Luckily, COCO was able to bid close to our budget on the majority of the provisional items. So in the map, you'll see that I have attached provisional item 1 would see the existing gravel path that connects the waterfront paths to the bathrooms be replaced with asphalt. This would increase accessibility for some users. Provisional item 2 consists of the installation of a 48-foot diameter circular stamped concrete pad in the center of the green space in the park. The pad is to have a compass stamped in the center of the pad that points to north, and the rest of the pad will have a natural rock stamped pattern with a natural earthy toned color scheme. And then provisional item 3 has 2 additional paths constructed that would add approximately 340 meters of paths to walk. These paths would connect the north and south paths to the stamped concrete pad in the center of the green space. Currently, we are a little short on the budget, but I've been told that additional funds can be made from the Morseburg Waterfront Advisory Committee, and I'm also going to discuss with COCO to see if there are any areas that we can cut costs. If there's any questions, I can happily answer them now.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Gardner?
Yes, so we've discussed this at length at the Morseburg Waterfront Committee. I think that the additional pathways and the center part will make a great addition to the park. As Justin said, there has been some discussion, so depending on the short or whatever, there potentially, I shouldn't even say potentially, there will be extra money to cover any of the shortfalls. So it's a good project and exciting for the Morseburg Waterfront to have that rickety path repaired. So,
Councilor Lewis?
No, I have no questions. I spoke to Deputy Mayor Gardner yesterday on this issue, and I was concerned about the price, but she explained it all to me, and that the funds are there. So I have no questions. Thank you.
Councilor Wells?
No, I think it's actually a pretty good price for what we're getting, and it's definitely all the provisional. They're like we're only shortfall is a little under 15,000. So, and now since the waterfront committee's coming up with the shortfall, and I think it's going to definitely add to our waterfront. It will once we get trees planted up around that stamped concrete and that. I think we're in a step in the right direction for our waterfront. So no, it looks good. I full support it.
Councilor Mellon?
I really don't have it looks awful. It's very nice. But just to clarify for me, the waterfront committee is going to come up with the other, I had 15 to 19,000 we're going to be short. Are they going to, have we got a resolution from them saying that they're going to pick up this cost? Or, the reason I'm asking, I just don't want this to come back and they're going to say, oh, well, council should pay for this, and we're going to say, well, no, this should come out of, waterfront committee funding, or do we have a firm commitment that the extra money is going to come out of Morseburg Waterfront Committee allocations?
I felt it was firm, but
Go ahead.
So we do have the commitment from the chair of the Morseburg Waterfront Committee that there is a donation of $10,000 on the table. That will reduce the amount to about $6,000. At that time, they do have some additional funding in the budget currently right now that could be reallocated to cover that additional cost. Like Justin indicated too, we want to sit down with COCO to see if there's any possible other savings that we can do to reduce that amount. So we're confident that everything that is provided in the report as scoped will be within budget.
Okay, I'd feel a little bit better if I had a report from the waterfront committee endorsing all this, but if we have this 10,000, let's drive on. We got a traffic circle in our park, but you know, it's that black traffic circle. Well, I call it stamped concrete pad. You know, it's just, sorry. You know, I just seen the pricing of that, but I mean, if the money's there, fine. You know, we got provincial, we got the funding there, but I just wanted to clarify where the extra shortfall was coming from. But I'm ready to drive on, Mayor Byvels.
Hey, Shannon, anything more to add?
Yeah, just another follow-up is, as we normally do with other projects, we will ensure that the funding is in place before we start the project.
That'd be nice. Okay,
All right.
thank you.
I think as much as it is, it's certainly part of the vision of what the waterfront needs to be. Worst comes to worst, it'll become part of their budget next year. That's simple as that. Like, that we usually allocate them some funds, and if it's only $16,000 or $6,000, I'm sure we can take that off whatever other requests they have for tomorrow or next year. But we all decided in the past was a priority project. We have funding for it. The extras certainly will enhance the waterfront, so I know as long as the funding's there, then I don't have any issues with it, especially if the waterfront committee is endorsing it. Anything further from any members of council? All heard the motion, those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion carries. Thank you, Justin.
All right, thank you very much.
Going on to bylaws, 2021-88, staff appointment.
Moved by Councillor Mellon, second by Councillor Lewis, that council accept, wrong one. Moved by Councillor Wells, second by Councillor Mellon, that bylaw number 2021-88, being a bylaw to appoint a clerk for the municipality of South Dundas, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Shannon?
So this is a follow-up to our special council meeting last week in which we appointed Brenda Brunt as the deputy clerk. As council was advised last week, our clerk has resigned effective on last Friday. So this will appoint Brenda Brunt as our clerk moving forward until we're able to recruit a new clerk for South Dundas. If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Any comments, questions, concerns from any member of council on this? Any comments, Councillor Wells?
No, Mayor, I'm all good.
Okay, with that, all heard the motion, those in favor, opposed if any, motion passes. Welcome back, Brenda. Moving on, 2021-89, Matilda Memorial Recreation Committee Agreement.
Moved by Councillor Lewis, second by Deputy Mayor Gardner, that bylaw number 2021-89, being a bylaw to execute a lease agreement with the Matilda Memorial Recreational Committee, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Anything further on this, Shannon?
No, it's the same agreement that was presented to council a few weeks back. The committee has reviewed it and have no issues with executing the agreement.
Okay, any comments, questions, concerns from any member of council? Seeing none, all heard the motion, those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Consent agenda, please.
Moved by Councillor Mellon, second by Councillor Wells, that all items listed under general consent section of the agenda be adopted as presented, with the exception of 9F, fleet repairs will be moved to discussion items.
So this evening, we have a letter from the City of Cornwall and also from Care for Eastern Counties. We also have a thank you letter from the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, Dr. Paul, concerning the vaccination clinics we had hosted in South Dundas. We also have a letter from Harvest Fest from Williamsburg that has restarted this year for approval of their insurance. We have a key information report on Firefighter for Today, which was an absolute amazing success. We also have monthly activity reports from Economic Development, Water, Wastewater, Parks, Recreation, Fire Emergency Services, Transportation, and the CAO. All heard the motion, those in favor? Opposed if any, motion carries. So we're moving on to boards, committees, discussion items. County Council, I will give council an update on our last county council meeting by just following the agenda through. Counties that hired it are in the process now of hiring an administrative assistant for court services division. There was a KMPG report that suggested we do so, and after some discussion, council agreed. We also had a discussion on having a new position at county's community planner, manager of planning, or director of planning services, Peter Young, asked for this position. It would also help him along with helping the two municipalities he works for now, which is ourselves in North Stormont. Once again, lots of discussion, but we did approve it. Counties did receive CIP funding for the Warden's House, and that was approved. That was $100,000, I do believe, for work within it, and that's part of the old jail for those who do not know what the Warden's House refers to. We have our budget meeting set for, if I remember right, December 8th and 9th of this year. So they will be presided by our current Warden Armstrong. We had a significant discussion on entrances. As some council know, counties were doing work in St. Andrews West this year. With that work, there was a rejigging of the ditches along with new entrances. County staff went on I guess in the notion that they were using the new entrance bylaw that was passed in 2017. It caused some concern by some residents as their driveways were now narrowed in at the end after a significant, and that was brought forth by Councillor McGillis, Mayor of South Stormont. After a significant discussion, the vote ended in a tie, and Warden Armstrong sided with our current bylaw, so it will stay the way it is. We are updating our flag policy at the counties, and there's consideration of putting up a third flagpole. Right now we have two. One is for the Canadian flag, one for the province. There was some suggestions of using the provincial one as a flag for other causes and purposes, but it was decided to at least look at it, having a third flagpole there for that use. The Warden's House renovations are going and still up, doing well. Something that council may be interested in, Mcphee Bridge was on County Road 10 east of Alexandria. They're doing work on it right now, but they replaced the guardrail on the north side, but they were lacking the steel pipework that was on top. That was back ordered. Not having the steel pipework caused counties not to be able to open that bridge up to do the second half, so they're detouring around. So some of the challenges we're having with supply has impacted the counties. And the counties have decided to keep their extra snowplow for this year in case they wanted to put a second de-icing unit on the old truck. And the truck is 20 years old, but is still worthy of keeping on the road for that purpose. And that's about it. Any comments, questions, concerns from counties? Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
You had mentioned, I think Mayor Bylaw, that they were gonna go ahead with the Warden's tournament, has that been?
No, I haven't heard nothing on it,
Yeah,
so I'm assuming that it's not on.
Died because it should have been this Friday. or-
Yes, correct, but I have not heard nothing.
Which
and
is
I know-
fine,
I know Warden Armstrong wasn't keen on it, but anyway, it doesn't seem like it's going. I haven't heard anything, so nothing new from my.
I was looking for a sponsorship from South Dundas.
Okay, anything from Cemetery Board, Council Wells?
No, Mayor.
Okay, Air Quad District Business Group, they haven't had a meeting, but Applefest is on this Saturday for anybody who would like to participate in it. They're still doing their work, meetings or no meeting, which is good to see. Horseshoe BIA,
I spoke to this Shannon this morning. The letter is ready to go out whenever Sam and myself review it. And of course, my internet was down, so I didn't get a chance to look at it. But hopefully, I'll get a look at it tomorrow and get back to him on it. And then when Sam endorses it, it'll be going to all the BIA representatives.
okay, any comments, questions, concerns from any member of council on this?
Excuse me.
Thank you. South Nation Conservation Authority, Councilor Mellon.
Yeah, we did have a meeting August 19th. Actually, we had another shorter one. It was a closed session dealing with property on September 2nd, but the regular Board of Directors meeting was August 19th. I guess sort of through the PowerPoint presentation, they had another successful year with 5 fish camps that got going again this year. They got canceled the year before, summer before, and they had over 100, and young people take part in that. It was very successful again. They hosted a pollinator initiative with SD&G, and that meeting was August 18th, and it has to do with that butterfly project that was presented to council a few months ago. The Robert Graham Trail, it was temporarily closed for trail improvements, so there should be some improvements there if anybody uses that. It was closed for 2 different days, August 16th, the 20th, and 23rd, and 26th. The one thing that I did pick up out of that, I guess maybe as a landowner with South Nation property beside us, and there's other ones out there that if there's any issues with trees or, encroaching on landowners' property, homeowners' property with South Nation, from South Nation property, just contact South Nation and they will definitely come in and evaluate those and trim them back, or if there's trees falling over from South Nation property. What else was there here that was of, the tree planting is another goal again this year. I think there's already been emails sent out to council and to staff, and people can now order their trees for next year at the reduced rate, and over-the-counter sales will be, I believe it's cost plus basically for handling and shipping and whatnot for over-the-counter for smaller acres. So if anybody's interested in next year tree planting, they can contact South Nation. The planting activities continues to grow, and the permitting in conjunction with that in the last has increased large increase over the last 1 to 2 years, which is a good thing. Even though with COVID you would have thought maybe things would have slowed down, but it was the exact opposite. It went sort of through the roof. We got sort of an update on Conservation Authority programs, planning and technical reviews, and what that encompasses, and that was a staff presentation. Also, and was this something new, which I didn't know of, green space now can be used in your asset management or intangible catchable assets. It's something new that was presented. It's just come out within the last little while, because I had never heard of it before. So South Nation will be evaluating their green space, and that will, maybe they can use that to apply for funding. So it's maybe, I don't know, South Dundas, you'd be feather head to talk to somebody back there that maybe has a little bit more knowledge on the background of that, but there was something when I sort of picked up, any green space, you can use that as your tangible capital asset, and like I say, maybe apply for some funding through that. I don't know if there was a whole lot else that's maybe earth-shattering. We did review, and it will be up the next South Nation meetings this Thursday, and the fee schedule will be reviewed and probably approved at this next South Nation meeting. There's not much of a difference, basically 2% minister zoning orders. They had to come up with some cost recovery on anything that's, with the minister zoning orders, which is sort of a, which is new, which had never really had in there before, but the fee schedule will be pretty well just a 2% cost of living increase across the board on those. So, and the next meeting, like I said, is this Thursday, is the next regular Board of Directors meeting, and the October meeting, which will be 21st, that'll be, well, that's when the levy is presented, so we'll see what kind of dollars and cents is floating around there. But
Since you brought it up, Council Mellon, first of all, I have to give South Nation some credit, because somebody always thinks of something creative to find money from somebody else's pocket to do something, and talk about making green space part of your infrastructure. With the new way of dealing with municipalities in 2022, has there been any further discussion on how they are going to function with that?
they
And
have
the
been
reason
work-
I have to ask this now is that you brought up the levy discussion.
Yeah.
And the two are extremely tied. You can't present a levy discussion without the separate discussion of separating your services out and who's paying what.
There has been,
And I certainly hope you as a board member will point that out hard, and if they need a little bit more hardening, I could send a letter to them too, and we've done it in the past. We will do what we think is right to make sure they know they are following the minister's orders, even if there is a new minister now.
they have worked on that. They have looked at what falls under the core mandate and what covers, is covered under the general levy, and what would be agreements with municipality, their partners. That's been something they've been working on. I don't know how much contact they've had with the municipalities and their partners. I hope they've had some, because you're right, Mayor Byvels, when it comes to levy time, obviously, there's, what falls under the core mandate and what would be paid by the levy or comes under the levy finances, and what would be a private, agreement with municipalities, whatnot. A lot of the fee schedules pick up a lot of that, like our sewage program, so the fee schedules pick up that. And, any environmental assessments and whatnot they have to do for, zoning or wetland, for development or stormwater management. Those things are all picked up underneath on the fee schedule. I'm going to push for the fee schedule to be a little bit higher. They try to get it around 90 or 95%. Now there is other funding that kicks in to helps offset that to bring it up to about 100%, so it's cost recovery. But your point is well taken, Mayor Byvels, and it will be duly noted at levy time to make sure. I've been sort of pushing for them to make sure they had this all clarified. Not sure how much senior staff has been working towards that. I'm hoping they've had the year of 2021, because it'll be supposed to be implemented, or, start to implement these things in 2022. So hopefully those things will be able to be separated out, and what isn't under the core mandate and what's under the general levy, and what would be separate private agreements with municipalities, depending on, what each municipality might want, or, the butternut compensation programs, et cetera. Those type things are.
Forestry.
Eh?
Your whole forestry portfolio
Yeah.
has to come out of
But those,
the
duly
levy.
noted.
Has to, so.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we won't partner with South Nation, but I think they have to come to our table and ask what they want to do for us in the new world. And I'm not just us, it's all municipalities. And I certainly hope that the board is not blinded by not getting this done. I'm not saying directly to you, but we also know that not all board members really, as much as they have to have their SNC hat on at the board table, they have to think of what the new world's going to be like and how that affects their individual municipalities in the end too.
The mindset that, to me, has somewhat changed. I mean, the core or the mandate, I guess, when you were on the board of directors, you were supposed to be, just totally, supporting South Nation. But I think now you've got, to me, and I always felt that way, that you got to make sure that you're also supporting the municipality that you're representing on that board of directors. And so that, I think, I'm hoping that mindset has changed. It may take a while for that mindset to change, that you don't rubber stamp stuff because it's coming from South Nation. It has to show a benefit for the partners and the municipalities that are taking that service and using that service from South Nation. They offer some very valuable expertise in different fields, but they also have to be accountable in how that money is being spent.
Okay. We'll trust that you will look after both sides of your needs, whichever hat you have to
A
wear
letter from
that
the
day.
municipality,
I know it's not easy, but
clarifying on that levy is not a bad idea, because, when you go into that levy meeting,
well, I'm going to suggest you bring it up at the next meeting, because no sense in them coming back in October and they're not going, you know how it works.
yeah.
I've been to those meetings. They're not present when you're on one side of the fence and you're the only one on it, so I wish you
Making
luck.
note of it now.
Any other comments for Councillor Mellon on this? Okay, thank you, sir. I know it's not an easy job, and then you'll end up with me telling you what to do, but I trust in your judgment. If you need help, you know where it is. Morse Waterfront Committee?
Next meeting is September 15th, but our last meeting, we had obviously the focus is on the pathways. This was prior to the pathway tender obviously coming back, but there's discussion on really moving all the projects forward as they get done. So the next one that they're looking at, which will probably happen next year, is the lookout. That was part of the plan. So there's been some discussion about the architectural drawings and just getting a rough idea of what that entails. So that's the next one on the burner.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, questions, concerns? Iroquois Waterfront Committee has not had a meeting in this council cycle. South Branch Community Fund?
No.
Nothing. Carbon House?
I had a lengthy discussion this afternoon with the chair about starting up the committee, because it's been well over a year since we have met. I suggested to him that when he sets up the meeting, that we start over fresh, because there hasn't been much done there on either side of the fence. I also mentioned to him that our budget's coming up very shortly, so if he can think of anything that should be done or has to be done, it would be nice to have some numbers on that. And he said that he would try to set up a meeting with the board either late September or early October, and I was happy with that.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Any comments, questions, concerns? Dundas County Archives, we haven't had a committee meeting. However, as council has seen in their agenda package, there will be a new agreement, hopefully between North and South Dundas, so we'll comment further at that time. Tourism Advisory Committee?
Had the meeting August 24th. Our focus is moving forward for next year, so any of the items that we either rolled out, or like the tourism app, or the pop-up shops that were a soft rollout, all those are being re-examined to see how they would be added on to for next year, or done better in the case of the pop-up shops. So we kind of re-examined that and have a plan moving forward with priority, and it will be brought to council, I imagine, by Mr. Hunter.
Okay. Question on the pop-up shops, are they getting relocated?
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, we want to the process of when they're being moved, we'll have the chair of the waterfront committee, the chair of the tourism committee, and myself and Rob Hunter to figure out location for next year while we're kind of moving them around and see what works and what doesn't work, and have those three items, the municipality and the tourism and waterfront committee there to add in. It'll be more of a collaborative effort.
Okay, sounds good. Any comments, questions, concerns? Moving on, economic development.
Okay, we have what's the date today? We had our last meeting September 8th. The Community Innovation Awards are coming down. They've been released to the press, and I'd encourage everyone to nominate everyone. It's been a tough 18 months, and if you know someone that has a good story that fits in the category, I say nominate, and people are not restricted to just one nomination. They can nominate multiple people or multiple businesses or multiple groups, and I think it'll be its third year, and I think it's a good way to recognize our community members. So all that stuff is online, and I encourage everybody to participate.
Okay. Anything from council? Seeing none, Doctor Advisory Committee.
Okay, we have had some Ministry of Health people move around a little bit. So we finally have our meeting with the health force about some items that we've discussed throughout the committee that are a possibility to kind of address healthcare as a whole, actually not just doctor recruitment, but some other items. And we have it hopefully the end of September.
Okay. Any comments, questions, concerns from council? Seeing none, thank you very much. Moving on, noise reduction for Harvest Fest. We have a resolution.
Moved by Councillor Wells, second by Councillor Lewis, that the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas accept Report PE 2021-07 to grant a temporary exemption request under Bylaw number 2016-20, specifically general provisions, prohibitions by time for an event to be held on September 25th, 2021 in Williamsburg.
Nicole, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Williamsburg Harvest Fest is back for 2021. It's been quite a while since we've had it running, and they are holding a live band on the 25th. So what they're hoping to get is a noise exemption beyond 11 p.m. into 1:30 a.m. of the next morning. If you have any questions, I can answer them at this time.
Okay, any comments, questions, concerns? Deputy Mayor?
I think it's fabulous that it's coming back. It's one of the things I've heard a lot about prior to this group taking it on, so kudos to them. I think just letting people know that it's coming, you know, as Nicole said, it has been a long time, so if there have been people that have moved in to the area that aren't aware that this used to go on, I think maybe a little bit of more notice, maybe even on the municipality side of things, just to kind of let folks know how awesome it is to have this coming back. But I have no issue. It's been a long 18 months. It'd be nice to listen to a band.
Councilor Lewis?
No, I have no issue. The only thing I have to say is welcome back Harvest Fest, and the committee's working hard. Thank you.
Councilor Wells?
Thank you, Mayor. I have no issues. I think it's great that it's coming back, and kudos out to Dave for starting it and that. So no, I'm all for it. Thank you.
Councilor Mellon?
Party on.
I like that attitude. I for one, am certainly glad that this committee is started by Mr. Hess, and certainly with the Oddfellows in the background, they're really doing hard work to get this going. It had been a staple in Williamsburg for many, many, many years, and had run its time, but time for it to come back, and certainly can support the resolution. There's nothing further from council. We've all heard the motion. Those in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion carries. Thank you, Nicole. We have a key information report concerning the recreation programming update from Austin. Is Melissa joining us tonight too, Austin, or just you?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, our recreation coordinator, Melissa, is also on the call, and I'm going to turn things over to her and let her discuss the report with council.
Okay, well, Melissa, welcome to South Dundas and welcome to South Dundas Council. I know you've been
Thank
here
you.
for a while, but
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The report I have in front of you this evening is to offer Council an update on recreational programming. As we are beginning to transition from summer to fall season, staff will be implementing the following items to improve our customer service as well as health and safety when it comes to our recreational programming. Facility-specific emergency procedures, child leaving independently form, incident and accident report form, recreation child care plan and form, recreation staff procedure manuals for instructors. Staff would like council to note that these policies and procedures will be utilized immediately as we plan to introduce after-school programs for youth this fall. In addition, staff will be looking to hire after-school program leaders who are qualified to work with children. Instructors' wage will be determined by experience and qualifications, which was included in the previous approved programming budget. If council has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
okay, Deputy Mayor.
When you're talking about the programming, will you, like, when will you have the programming plan, especially for the kids, in place?
I've been working with through you, Mr. Mayor. I have been working with the public schools, the Morrisburg one specifically. We are looking for October.
Okay,
Start.
good. Okay. But are you gonna be able to hit Iroquois as well?
Yes, there are some COVID procedures that we have to work with the schools.
Okay,
Currently not allowed within the schools
okay.
to do the programming.
Okay, so, just one more
Go
question.
ahead.
Mr. Mayor. So for, say, Morrisburg Public, just roughly, what would the programming look like? Like for the kids that are in the public school system? Actually, shouldn't it be for all kids? Like, are you going to include all the kids in South Dundas, or are you just going by school?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the program would include all children in South Dundas, but there would be an option for the Morrisburg Public School where we could pick them up after school and bring them to programming.
Gotcha. Okay, now I understand. Thank you.
Councilor Lewis.
No, I think Deputy Mayor Gardner asked my question. Welcome aboard, Melissa.
Thank you.
Councilor Wells.
Thank you, Mary. No, I have no questions. Just move forward. Everything looks like it's falling in place. So. Yep.
Councilor Mellon. I do have a question or two, Melissa. Just referring to Deputy Mayor Gardner's comment concerning hitting all the children in South Dundas, because you seem like you're focusing on Morrisburg Public, which is not a bad idea, but we also have St. Mary, St. Cecilia just up the road, and we also have Iroquois Public that needs to be in the mix too. So I guess my concern is to make sure that everybody that wants to be involved can be involved. Is that your aim?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it is our intention to run programs in all areas of South Dundas. It will be dependent on our hiring and how many qualified staff we can get for the different areas.
Okay. And I guess and I don't know how far north you want to go with your programming, how far you want outreach, but you know, the northeast quadrant would tend to go to Chesterville Public, and I'm not sure about the northwest if they hit Nation View or where they go, but so don't forget there's more than Morrisburg in this equation, so you got to start thinking how you're going to involve them. I know you may not get a lot of uptake, but we do have a hall in Dunbar that can be used, so there is potential there too. The other question I have is concerning some of the challenges we've had in the past in working with our recreational facilitators. I know Austin and myself and Shannon had been involved in the spring meeting concerning some of the lack of communication, and when you weren't there, but it seemed that everybody said that you were going to take care of the mess, and I hope Austin has helped you with that. So if either one of you can comment on how that's working going forward here now that fall is here, and indoor recreation will have to start up because outdoor cannot leave forever. Come on, Austin, you can't throw her under the bus, so let's go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So through you, we have been working hard to make sure we're communicating with our instructors regularly. I know Melissa has been communicating with them, and she has been committed to meeting with them prior to each session. I know in that meeting in the spring, we did decide that we were going to meet with all the instructors about a month in advance before each session started, just so everyone was on the same page moving forward. And we've stayed committed to that, and Melissa's been meeting with them and communicating regularly.
Okay, that's good to hear. I haven't had the phone call ring, but I just want to know if everything's been followed up. Anything else from council on this? Seeing none, thanks Austin, thanks Melissa.
Thank you.
Okay, next one is North Dundas Agreement concerning the Dundas County Archives. CEO?
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and our new clerk might be able to provide some context into this as well too. So this is a draft agreement with North Dundas in regards to our archives. Back 5-6 years ago, we did enter into a MOU when the archives started. This is just formalizing more of an agreement as far as how the cost will be divided between us and North Dundas, which will be 50-50. It will be an annual CPI adjustment. Any operation costs will be absorbed 50-50 between both municipalities. The other addition we added into this was a termination clause that if either of the municipalities wish to terminate the agreement, that it gives the municipality 1 year in advance to make other arrangements if needed. So this is a draft right now, so we're looking for comments. I have been working with North Dundas, and Brenda was prior to her leaving as well too. So if there's any questions or comments, we'd be more happy to answer them.
Okay, as our committee member, I will make. I have reviewed the new agreement, and to be honest, the memorandum of understanding that was between our two municipalities was a fairly loose and poor document. It was a good starting base, but it wasn't a real agreement on how things had to be shared and costs allocated. So having read through this agreement, I think we've covered all bases. I think it's a fair agreement between North Dundas and South Dundas. My concern isn't specifically with the agreement, but coming up with a new terms of reference for the committee that's there now, and what the committee is supposed to advise the two councils on how the archives will operate. We need to work on that one way or the other, and we also have to talk with the UEL group on how they function within the archives also, because they're not really part of this agreement. This is more making sure that the shared services is done right, and paid in the proper proportion. As much as we are the host, we're both sharing equally in all costs, which is, I think, a good thing. So any comments on how we're going to deal with the committee? I think that's important, because in the end, the committee was very hands-on, and this will take a lot of the hands-on out of it, because this is it.
So what our plan will be is, once we establish the agreement in principle by both municipalities, we'll look at updating the terms of reference to reflect the agreement.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And include the UELs within
Absolutely.
that. Okay. Comments, questions, concerns? Deputy Mayor.
No, I mean, I think an agreement is a good idea. Just wondering, so as collections tend to grow, does it speak to allocation of space? So say North Dundas all of a sudden received a massive archival collection, and they're all of a sudden taking up, say, I'm just using rough numbers,
Yep.
3/4 of the space. We've got a 50-50 agreement. Like, is there an allocation of space within the building? So how do you determine what collections are accepted, when it's too much for one side over the other? Like, how, not to muddy the waters, but
That's a good idea, a good
I'm
point.
just, I'm
question.
curious, because seriously, you could have someone pass away in North Dundas, and all of a sudden they come and it's box after box after box. How do you allocate the space evenly?
North Dundas version of Lynn Cook.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think that what we've done through the committee, and perhaps you haven't seen it, we do have a donation policy.
Okay.
And we don't have an allocation policy, obviously, because we're getting stuff all the time from both municipalities. But we do have a policy saying, yes, we will take this. The committee came up with that, and I do believe it has been endorsed by council. So when we bring the terms of reference back, we'll bring all the policies and
Okay.
everything back at the same time.
Because I think that's important if you're doing the 50-50 split, that it's, you've got certain space at least.
True, and there, if you're looking down the road and looking at the former gymnasium portion of the school, there's a lot of airspace up there, and we don't expect Susan to go up and use the airspace, but, if I wouldn't say this council, but maybe a council down the road along with North Dundas will want to put in a mezzanine to
Yeah.
utilize that airspace or come up with some solution that works within the standards that the employees can work with. It can be done. It's going to cost money, of course, but if we get growth is not bad as long as we can handle it from a operational and a financial point of view.
Okay.
I don't want it to become a dumpster either, and I think some of that has been addressed.
Yeah. I do have another question, actually. And we're talking about this later on when we talk about truth and reconciliation or any of the historical references. I do believe that an archives would be a really good spot to have rotating displays on current issues that are decided upon. So maybe in your terms of reference, the committee could then maybe decide on a calendar of focusing on some of the because history is you used to just have the genealogists or the trained people or whatever just kind of off in the corner, but a lot of policies, procedures, and whatever that are being brought forward that the community is now talking about are things that were determined in the past, and there's an education component, and there are also, and I do believe that the archives could potentially play a role in maybe highlighting some of those moments, if you will, or controversial items, if you will, and providing some education around it. So that was just my other suggestion.
Okay.
No, I have no questions.
Councilor Wells, comments, questions, concerns?
I have no questions, Mayor.
Councilor Mellon?
The length of this agreement, Shannon, is it open-ended, basically?
I believe it says in here that we would review it every 5 years.
Every 5 years? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I missed that one. I
Yeah.
did read it over, and I do agree with you, Mayor Byveld. I think it sort of outlines,
Annually, I think, isn't it?
definitely sets the cost and, the 50/50, and I'm good with it.
One of the other things that I noticed, Shannon, is the map that was attached to our old agenda that's no longer in the new one.
Okay.
The hall was part of the archives footprint,
Correct.
but if we do something on the other side, it has to become a shared hall with fire separation that we have to do yet, because we need the washrooms, we need access to our side of the building.
Correct, and when the medical clinic was in there with the archives, it was a shared space for accessibility, because there's
Yeah.
accessible washroom in there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we
So that
gotta
would
keep
be-
that in
yep.
mind, as long as North Dundas says, well, you can't use the hall anymore, and then that doesn't work for us, so.
Yeah, there's more just for space for access to the bathrooms if needed.
Okay, I
Yep.
think that maybe should be at least mentioned,
Sure.
that the hallway would become a shared space if necessary.
Absolutely.
Other than that, I think it's good. I think it's something that, I wouldn't say totally overdue, but it certainly cleans up what I considered a poor agreement between the two municipalities. If there's nothing further, we've given you direction. Any comments, any further?
No, I think just to reference our Councillor Mellon's point, I think it says in here that we will review annually the agreement, just to make sure there's no changes. The 1st of every year. 1st of July of every year.
There will be a review, so we'll just leave it at that.
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
Little dead air. Anything else? Okay, thank you. So, September 30th is now a federal holiday for National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, and AMO, our Association of Municipalities of Ontario, have recommended that municipalities, if they feel so, would pass resolutions supporting the day. There is one in our package that they have used as a base. Have you put it into a formal resolution, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir.
Can we read it first and then we can discuss whether we're going to pass it or not, please?
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, second by Councillor Lewis. Whereas the Truth and Reconciliation Commission released its final report on June 2nd, 2015, which included 94 calls to action to redress the legacy of residential schools and advance the process of Canadian reconciliation. And whereas the recent discoveries of remains and unmarked graves across Canada have led to increased calls for all levels of government to address the recommendations in the TRC's calls to action. And whereas all Canadians and all orders of government have a role to play in reconciliation. And whereas recommendation number 80 of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission called upon the federal government in collaboration with Aboriginal peoples to establish as a statutory holiday a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation to ensure that public commemoration of the history and legacy of residential schools remains a vital component of the reconciliation process. And whereas the federal government has announced September 30th, 2021 as the first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, National Orange Shirt Day, and a statutory holiday. Therefore be it resolved that the Council of Municipality does hereby commit to recognizing September 30th, 2021 as the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, National Orange Shirt Day, by sharing the stories of residential school survivors, their families, and communities.
Okay. So I'm in the belief that we should support this resolution. I think it's important that we as Council of South Dundas and the residents of South Dundas recognize this day for truth and reconciliation and to work along with our Indigenous people to that we all progress in a fair and equitable way. And I also will, I will also encourage all residents of South Dundas to recognize National Orange Shirt Day and do their part as part of it. Deputy Mayor Gardner.
Absolutely agree. Thank you for bringing this forward. I've already ordered an orange shirt, and actually Reagan's had an orange shirt day forever since she started at school. I don't think Gardner did, but so I ordered one for myself this year. Back whenever the the graves were first discovered, they had a day on the radio where they were telling stories and listening. And I think I absolutely support this. I think people need to actually listen to the stories, the perspectives. They're not all the same. There's different perspectives, different stories, but I think that the 94 calls to action, it's up to us to act. And if this is part of the conversation and part of the action, then obviously we do need to take action. And I'm hoping that our residents spend some time, and it could be something as simple as asking school-age children what their programming involved, and listening to some of the stories that that are shared at the school. Hopefully, once the pandemic is over, similar to Remembrance Day, the schools may hopefully open up and allow the public to actually go and see part of their programming, and maybe that's the way. And I would hope that our staff would take up the initiative to, have a formal orange shirt day to kind of represent and learn. And I know that some of us are signed up for some training, so I think that's all we can do at this particular juncture, is to learn, listen, and recognize. So I support it.
Councillor Lewis?
I have no problem whatsoever supporting it. Sad thing to happen. And I hope that, people take time to find out why September 30th will be a holiday, because it is a sad time in our life. And so I support this 100%. Thank you.
Councillor Wells?
I definitely support it, Mayor. It's a sad thing, and it's something I agree with, so I fully support it. Thank you.
Councillor Mellon?
No, I can totally support this. Unfortunately, you can't go back in time and change things, but we can damn well learn from it. So I hope the truth and education part of it will come out, and people will see. All you gotta do is walk a mile in their shoes and see how you'd feel.
Well said. Okay, if there's nothing further from council, I've all heard the resolution. Those in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We also have tonight a letter from Dr. Karen Sally, who works at the Upper Canada Vision Clinic here in the village of Morrisburg. A letter addressing underfunding of eye care and asking council for a letter of support to support the optometrists in their discussions with the province. They have been significantly underfunded for the OHIP side of their business, which is children and seniors. I guess I'll leave it up to council if that's something they want to do.
I absolutely support this. I mean, eye health is important. People need to see, and it's good to address this. I think kind of very similar to even dental coverage, that type of thing. You can't splice up the body and say some of it's covered and some of it's not. So I would definitely support this, and definitely she's mentioned the senior population. I think they need some protection against the cut as well. So I have no problem supporting.
Councillor Lewis?
I have no problem supporting this whatsoever, because now I am a senior.
You're biased. Councillor Wells?
Thank you, Mayor. No, I fully support this. Over the years, OHIP's been taking little bits and bites out of everything. So, and this is just a perfect example of it. No, I'm fully in support of it.
Councillor Mellon?
No, this has been in the media last week or so, week and a half, and there's really some terrible discrepancies between what Ontario pays and what other provinces pay. We're low man on the on the poll on this one, so I don't think I have no problem in supporting better funding for eye care.
You have a resolution made up, Madam Clerk?
Yes. Moved by Councillor Wells, second by Councillor Mellon, that the Council of Municipality of South Dundas support the request from the Upper Canada Vision to petition the provincial government to address the underfunding of eye care so that the optometrists across the province can be compensated appropriately, and that this resolution be sent to the provincial government and SDNG municipalities for their consideration.
Okay, anything further? All heard the motion, those in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion carries. Moving on, we have a property standards order appeal, so I'm going to turn it over. Council has read the letter. I'm going to turn it over to staff for more clarification and information on this. So Nicole, have that. Nicole?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the property standards order was issued on May 4th, and this stemmed from a complaint from another resident. The property is located on Halbert Road, and it has been kind of a troublesome property for a number of years. We issued the order May 4th. She was provided with a deadline of May 25th, 2021 to have it rectified. And we actually gave her another month on top of that. So on June 21st, we did a follow-up site inspection. There was a number of issues that weren't cleaned up. So the next day, June 22nd, we issued the standard $200 fee for non-compliance. If you have any questions, I can answer them at this time.
Okay, I'm gonna start with Council Mellon, because I heard Halbert Road, so.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a contentious issue on back in my neck of the woods, I guess if you will. I've had several phone calls on it, but you know, I'm a little torn on this. It's nice to be able to give people the opportunity to clean up and, you know, give them a little leeway. But I'm taking the call, we did do that, and, you know, if they're given an adequate amount of time to try and get their property standard up to, you know, sometimes, and I can sympathize with people that are working and, you know, have limited resources or limited time, you know, to get things in order. How much time did we give them from the first visit to when the fine was given? Nicole, can you enlighten me again on that?
There was a total of 8 weeks.
8 weeks. Yeah, well, 8 weeks might seem like enough. Have you been back to, you know, it's getting up to standard now, would you not say?
I can't speak to that. We've done the June 21st site inspection, and unfortunately, we don't have staff in Bylaw, so keeping up to date is a little difficult, especially throughout South Dundas. There's a number of properties that are similar to this state, so I can't tell you what he looks like today.
You know, I don't know. We should have something in that, you know, I guess, do we have something in our bylaw that says, we're, you know, if we give you, you know, 3 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks, you know, or, you know, so the individual knows that they're on the clock. I just don't know, it wasn't, you know, that's the only thing, like, I mean, sometimes, you know, they put things off, but, you know, if there's something in there that says, okay, hey, you know, you got 3 weeks to get this cleaned up, or you got 5 weeks to get this cleaned up, or you got, you know, 5 days, whatever the case may be, you know, it allows them to allocate their time and resources, but, you know, I'm not sure on this one, you know.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
I like to see people who try and get their place cleaned up, and everybody doesn't always do it at the same speed, but, you know, I think, you know, we try and work with them, but a complaint is a complaint and a fine is a fine, so I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna, all for now.
Can I speak to that now?
Council Wells?
Thank you, Mayor Bio. For whatever reason, I did not see this in email to me about, this is the first time I heard about this property.
Yeah, and I apologize, Councilor Wells, it was a last minute addition because it was a letter that had been received earlier on but was dropped, so I wanted to make sure it was past time for us to deal with it, so it's a little short notice, but I think there's enough information there along with staff's discussion, and we should be able to hopefully do something. If not, council can delay it till next time too.
Okay, that being said, Mayor, like I said, I haven't even seen the letter. the complaint letter, or this is, everything's new what I'm just hearing right now? I just went back, checked all my emails, and there's
It
nothing.
wasn't in your
So-
email, it actually came to me, and I sent it off to the clerk for council's consideration, but it never got to council till now, because I asked for it to come tonight. So, as I said, I apologize for that, but this was her second notice to me, so I didn't want to linger any longer. As I said, if council wants to defer it till our next meeting to make a decision and we get more information on it, that would be fair too.
I personally, myself, Mayor, I would like to defer, because I can't make any comment on what I haven't seen. Like I've heard Nicole say about the person that is fire chair had 8 weeks, but then to go back, that she said the last time they were there was in June. And I know we're understaffed right now for bylaw, but like you take July, August, or almost halfway through September now, so there's another 11 weeks. So I don't know if maybe the person has lied to the thing or whatever. So I would just, personally myself, I would like to defer to the, I guess it would be the 27th. So I have a little more time to look into it. Thank you.
Excuse me, Councilor Lewis?
Well, I don't know. I think I look at it a little bit different. I don't know this person. I don't know where they live, but I believe if they were issue a cleanup and they were given 8 weeks and it's not cleaned up in 8 weeks, then I believe that the $200 fine should have been issued. And now in saying that, I wish somebody would also take the time to go back to that residence and just have a quick look to make sure that it's still in the state where it was before. But to me, if you got 8 weeks to clean up your property, my goodness gracious, that's all kinds of time. So I don't have an issue with the $200 fine, none whatsoever.
Mayor?
I take a little bit of a different approach. If our goal is to get these properties cleaned up, I understand policies, procedures, all that. I get it. And normally I'm pretty straight, black and white on this stuff. But, you know, because there isn't a timeline, as Councillor Mellon, in our bylaw, I think, number one, that needs to be looked at. But number two, for me, I would... Oh, is there a timeline in the bylaw?
There absolutely is, yes.
What does it say?
So the order that was issued on May 4th gave a deadline of May 25th. We then extended it beyond that to June 21st.
But that's
So she's had plenty of time, and this is not the first occurrence.
okay. I understand that, Nicole. But with the problem solving, if the goal is to get the property cleared up, for me, I'd be comfortable if she showed a receipt saying that she spent $200 cleaning up the property. I think if she's having a difficulty cleaning it up, adding 200 and then another 200 and then another 200, when you get up to $1,000 that could have been used for waste removal, we haven't solved the problem. We've just created a situation. And if you're saying it's a long-standing issue, I get it, but as noted, we're understaffed. And, you know, I'm not saying that the $200 deal should be forever, but if they can provide a receipt that was started tomorrow from, I don't know, whatever, it erases the fine. If they don't, then the fine stands. I think sometimes you have to be creative with these things. It's I don't know. I look at it as we're trying to solve a problem, and at the end of the day, it's to clean the property up. That's the way I look at it.
Okay. I'm actually more in the theme of Councillor Wells. Not so much that we just got it dumped on us, and I apologize for that again. My challenge is that no one has gone back since the 21st of June, and I don't, and I know you're understaffed, Nicole, but I know Brianna could make a run around there, and it'd be no different than her running the roads down here on the weekends. That's what bothers me the most about this. I didn't know where she lived, so I couldn't even comment on that. Now it's Hulbert Road, we all know. I would accept her desire to have the fine waived if I go by there tonight and the place is pristine like it should be. My little gut tells me it probably is not. And if it's not, then the $200 fine is $200 fine, and by the way, you got another month to clean it up, or it's another $200. We just keep on piling it up, and that's. We have other areas of concern, municipalities. We got one in Morrisburg here that has been a total disaster, and it is a challenge. I see correspondence on it today, and I'm getting to the point of just do what you got to do and deal with it. But I'm willing to get more information. That someone needs to go there tomorrow, and if it's cleaned up, I'll drop the 200. If it's not, then the 200 can stay, and we can make that decision on the 27th. Is that fair enough, Councilor Mellon? Or you got?
No, I mean, I can live with that, assessment.
There's nothing worse than someone begging for forgiveness and then laughing at us. Well, we didn't have to do anything in the first place. I'm sorry. It's not the way I don't think that's fair.
I think, if somebody can go back there in the next day or two and see what kind of progress has been made, property standards are, have always been a very, touchy subject, because one person may not think it's all that bad, and the next person,
Well, true. I agree with you.
And, so that's always the issue, what one can find acceptable, somebody, on down the road or whatever doesn't think so. So, I can live with the fact that if Bylaw can go back and have a look and see what their evaluation is, and then come back at the next meeting and say, yes, there has definitely been, substantial improvement, or, it's cleaned up. Yeah, but if not, there's been improvement, but compared to what originally was, so I'm good with that, yeah.
Okay, Councilor Wells, anything further?
No, I'm glad it's getting deferred to the 27th. And I agree with you, Mayor, about, gut feeling, maybe it's not, but someone, a benefit of the doubt to start with there. Someone goes back and checks, and if it's the same it was in June, well, so be it. The line stands. Go from there.
You're still where you are?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but I think 10 weeks is sufficient time.
Fully understood. I think there's this lack in here that I have a concern with, and that's our follow-up too.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I agree.
No.
Oh,
Sorry, Nicole, we have the floor here right now. Deputy Mayor?
yeah, I agree with you, Mayor Byvelds. I think that it'd be nice to get verification of this current status. I would like just to circle back, the bylaw, is there, I don't know if Nicole wants to answer, not in the order, but in the bylaw, is there a time frame in the bylaw for cleanup?
I don't know. I don't read the bylaw every day. I got too many to read. Nicole, is there a time limit in the bylaw from direction to when the fine would be issued?
Yes, there is. If you read the bylaw, yes, there is.
Okay. Well, what does it say?
I don't have the bylaw in front of me, Mr. Mayor. I can't read it word for word. I'm sorry.
Okay, well then I guess what council would, from my feel and read of council, is that we would like an updated visit of this site, and then at that for the 27th meeting, and you can update council on some of the particulars of the bylaw, please. Anything further from council on this?
No.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Next one, fleet repairs. I had that pulled because at council time, budget time, we were really keying in on this. So Jeff, welcome to council. You can explain through it. If our budget's 140 and we're at it 140, then what are we doing? Is that what I read?
Yes, it is. So thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. So in front of you is just an update as I've been issuing to Council going through this year. Presently, we are at 140,452 of 175,000, which was agreed upon at budget time. Listed below, since the KIR, which I presented on June 28th, identifies units and the expenses spent on those key contributors and broken down by my mechanic within the municipality. He did say that there is still 9 vehicles remaining to be safetied for this year. In breaking down the 9 vehicles, 4 of them are snow plow trucks, 3 of them are 3/4 ton vehicles within the municipality, and 2 are trailers. One is a single axle trailer, and one is the vac trailer presently used by the water department, equaling the 14,000. Those are, again, rough numbers. That would be an oil change and the safety inspection and whatever else he finds. He's estimating the costs for the plow trucks to be around the $2,500 mark. That's again with the safety, with an oil change, and any needed repairs that he has seen. The 3/4 tons, he's estimating it at $1,000 a vehicle, again for the safety and oil change and any repairs needed for the safeties. And he has the one trailer earmarked for $200 and another one earmarked for $500. I'd be happy to answer any questions which you may have at this time.
Okay. That clarifies the budget. I'm going to suggest to you that if do you have a report, at least refresh council's memory of where their starting number is. That helps a lot in some of our determination if it's within what we feel and what we don't feel. I will make the comment that, I always believe the trucks have to be up to standards. I'm seeing a lot of stuff here that I guess it's one-offs and we don't have to do it again, but like drive tires and rims, and I know they're all sitting in rust and salt, but anyway, I'm not going to go there and question everything he does. We as council need to be aware of what's going on and making sure it's all done well and not beyond what we need to do. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, if I can interject, but if I can just highlight the fact, and Shannon is well aware of this, that my mechanic and myself, we talk regularly. He is well aware of where the budget is. He keeps myself and Shannon informed on what is coming up. And he is a strong believer and a firm believer, as well as council, that he's trying to keep it within the budget amount. He is doing his due diligence, and he's trying very hard at it. I will say that. So, and Shannon, I believe, can echo the same sentiments, because we have been talking with him. So I just wanted to let that out there.
Okay. Any comments?
No, I will agree. We did have a meeting a few months back just to kind of get an update of where they're at. One thing we do is we do have ongoing communications between the mechanic and the department heads, so the fire department, bylaw, and recreation, to continue that communication moving forward as far as what vehicles need to be replaced, when, and all that stuff. So there's I think a bigger effort this year, as in maybe in past, that there's constant communication back and forth.
Okay. Any comments, questions, concerns from council on this, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I appreciate the report and the up-to-date. As we get closer to the end of when the money runs out, I'm happy to see that there's increased communication and confidence. I think that's part of it. But sometimes it's prudent. As you come to the end, you try to get the end of the time before the end of the money. Sometimes you're going to want to ramp up those meetings, right? So as you get closer, you're trying to hit the target of, well, it'd be nice if you didn't hit the target and it was under, but 175. But I hope that you increase the communication, don't space it out. And if there's something that comes to the table that, say, in November, that can be done, you know, like, yes, so that would be my suggestion, because it's a big number. And, you know, our residents feel that we have a lot of vehicles. And I think this is an important line item to make sure that we are very critical and we dig deep to make sure that we get as close as we can.
Okay. Councilor Lewis, any comments, questions, concerns?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I understand that, you know, things have to be fixed, and I just hope at the end of the year it's not over the 175.
Okay. Councilor Wells?
Thank you, Mayor. No, I have big trucks. I know what it's all about. Things come up. As of now, we're still under budget, so that's good. Hopefully, by the time our year end comes in, we're good to go. The only thing that stands out to me, Jeff, is Unit 93, and I'm having a hard time just getting like 8 new tires, hydraulic hoses for almost $10,000. Everything else looks all right. It's just that kind of just stands out for me. I don't know if we maybe put all Michelin's on them or whatever, but that was the only thing I would have on that one, was 93. It seems pretty expensive unless we replaced every hydraulic hose on the truck. But other than that, like I said, we're under budget, so that's all we can do. And communication for next year, I like the way we're doing it this year. You bring back these reports, Jeff, it's excellent work for you and the mechanic, and it keeps us in the ball game here, and we know exactly what we have to do, and it'll help us for the 2022 budget. So, that's it for me now, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Mallon?
Well, budget time, I was a little apprehensive at 175,000, to be perfectly honest with you. I didn't, you know, let's face it. I think Jeff and the mechanic are, you know, doing the best they can. You know, I wouldn't want a mechanic that would sign off on something that isn't road safety, ready for the road and safety to make the, safety inspection. And the last thing I want to do is see us, we're at 174,900. I guess we better not replace something, and then that piece of equipment lays down, because you know as well as I do that'll be happening around snow time, and everybody will be screaming blue murder at us. Why is my road cleaned out or whatever? So the 175,000 was a benchmark. I'm glad we're sort of adhering to trying to stay as close as we can to it. But all my years around machinery and equipment, and it is not an exact science, and we're going to try and stay within those numbers. But perfectly honest with you, one major breakdown, you take out a hydraulic pump out of your, backhoe, or, one, is going to blow that remaining budget right out of the water. So, we got to keep our fleet on the road. We don't want to overspend and waste money, and we're not. And, but we want to make sure our fleet is also safety and, roadworthy. And, we're not, I don't think we're, spending money frivolously, and breakdowns are breakdowns, and repairs are repairs, and I'll be very happy if we can come in at the 175,000. Like I say, one major curb poop, and we're gonna blow that number right out of the water, and I can live with that, because that's what it's gonna cost us to keep our fleet on the road and provide the services that the people are expecting. No sense having equipment or trucks or plows or backhoes if, oh, we can't fix it, I guess we'll set it over in the corner. I think we all have to be aware of that.
Okay, fair enough, Councillor Mellon, but you're almost sounding a little open-ended, and I'm somewhat concerned as a person that has a lot of equipment running around, and yeah, I went to my combine today, and I'm probably gonna spend several $1,000s because I found a crack in the major belt, but there's a lot of tires on here, there's a lot of stuff on here, and I'm not going to be quite as open-ended. I'm going to be a little bit more inspection, because if I go take my truck to wherever I take it, I just like do whatever you want, and here's the checkbook, and that's not a good attitude. We need to be responsible for all the money. Yes, we have to have safe equipment, but we have to be smart in how we do everything. Jeff, Councillor Wells had a question on 93. Comments?
Yeah, so I just want to, through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to clarify, Unit 93, Councillor Wells, is the rubber-tired excavator. We purchased that, I believe, help me out here, Shannon, in 2019, maybe 2018. And that is the first set of tires that we have put on that unit. So they all wore down at the same time. One blew and another one had cracks where the tire tread should be, which was not, because they were completely wore out. So that was 8 new tires that went on that rubber tired excavator. So that will not be a cost for next year. So that's an example of what hit Unit 93 this year.
Okay. Well, then I guess a new suggestion for your next report is, instead of you can use your numbers, because I understand that's just like me when I talk about county roads and everybody says, tell me what its real name is. I'll say County Road 8, and everybody says, well, where's that? I say, it's Church Road. Oh, I know where Church Road is. So don't have to have, you can say single axle or whatever, age everything. Like 93, if we knew it was a loader, that makes logical sense, because those tires are fairly expensive. We understand that. And the hydraulic hoses, if you don't upkeep them, you're going to blow one when you need one. So more information is never a bad thing when it comes to that kind of information. So that helps a lot. Okay, anything further from any member of council? I think Councillor Wells, yes, go ahead. I can barely see your hand, but I can see you. Go ahead.
No, yes, I definitely number 93. I didn't realize it was the excavator. That makes sense now. Even though I know we have the full things there at budget time of all the numbers, what the equipment is. Like Mayor said there, it'd just be nice just to say, okay, this was the excavator. I wouldn't even ask that question about the 9700 stuff, but other than that, everything's, like I said, it's, I'm happy the way it's going this year.
Okay, anything further from any members of council? Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Mr. Mayor, one question for you. Just
Yes.
to clarify, so on the next report, you would like to see the unit number with what it is and the age of it? Am I correct in assuming that?
Yeah, I think that's a good start. If it's a 2018 piece of machinery, we don't expect many repairs. If it's a 2002 piece of machinery, we have to end up spending more money on it. So just makes some logical sense. Thank you. Drainage update, Councillor Mellon.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Bylaws. I was a little miffed, I guess, if you will, when I opened the agenda and there was no drainage report in here. I think at the last council meeting, we made it very clear to McIntosh and Perry and to staff that we were expecting something to be on the table as far as moving our municipal drain work ahead this fall. And I'd like to have a little bit of an update as to where we are at that, because I'm getting my patience has run out on this file. We should have had this done months ago, and here we are in the middle of September, and we still have nothing to show for the last 4 or 5 months. I'm a little miffed at myself for not maybe pushing the matter, you know, over the last 3-4 months to get it on the table, but you shouldn't have to do that when, you know, council has given directive, and especially council gave the directive at the last council meeting, which was about a month ago, 3 weeks, 4 weeks ago, that we wanted something at this council meeting, and we have nothing. So where are we with our drainage maintenance work and our schedule for this fall, is what I'd like to know.
Okay, CEO?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before I pass it over to Justin, Justin is in daily conversations with McIntosh Perry, Lucas. Based on his conversation with Lucas last week, there was no further updates from McIntosh Perry at that time. That's why Council does not see a report on the table tonight. It would have been the same report that you received back in August. Justin has gone ahead and completed the hourly rate that was discussed at our last meeting. The issue we're having right now is in regards to the environmental liability component, which is hampering some of the contractors from bidding. It does add anywhere between $5,000 and $11,000 to the cost of their bidding. So, you know, if we're talking about municipal drains tonight, looking for some direction on council on how they want to proceed. We did talk to our insurance provider. They do recommend that we have $1 million environmental liability. But definitely Justin can speak more to that as well too. So I'll let Justin talk a little bit right now then.
Go ahead, Justin.
Good evening again, and thank you for having me. Yes, so in regards to the environmental liability, I did discuss it with our insurance broker, and essentially, if we don't have that, even though we do have an indemnification clause in our tender, it could possibly still come back on us if there ever is a spill within a municipal drain. So the issues with just carrying commercial general liability is it doesn't cover site remediation. So say you do have a diesel spill of whatever, 150 liters, and it obviously is going to go downstream. The CGL is only going to cover for that works job site. It doesn't cover downstream. So that's kind of the biggest hindrance of not carrying the EIL. So we're kind of just looking for direction from council as to whether we keep it in or not. That hourly list has been out for 2 weeks now. It was supposed to close last Friday, but because I've had multiple calls on the EIL, that's why we're bringing it up, and I have extended the tender to close this Friday. So if there is any changes I need to make, if we're taking it out, then I'll issue another addendum, and we'll go from there.
Have you had conversations with our neighbors on how they handle this? I know that North Dundas does hourly stuff, but I have no idea what their expectations are, what our past expectations were.
So I can.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I've talked to other drainage superintendents within the areas, and it's pretty well 50-50. Obviously, the closer you get to the city, the more it's required for city jobs. So I've been talking to other members of DSAO. So the less rural you get, the more likely they are to require the EIL. Whereas out here, it never was a requirement. So the downside is we're going to lose out on a lot of smaller companies from getting on our hourly list because they don't want to carry it because of that extra $10,000 a year charge. And so it's not a really definite answer, but I would say it's 50-50 among other municipalities, whether they require it or not. For our other tenders, I know the tender that we just got approved for the Morrisburg Pathways, it was part of that tender. So a lot of the larger companies obviously already carry it just to cover their own company's sake. So yeah, we're kind of looking for your recommendations. I know some other councillors have worked in this environment before, so I'm wondering if they might have direction as to whether they wish to see it in the tender or not.
Okay. So did we ask for it in the past for drainage work?
Yes, we have.
So the Frank Galt's of the world would have had it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Was that part of some of the challenges other contractors had at that time too, from what I heard?
It definitely could be a possibility of why we've in the past received a low amount of bids to that underneath that work is because of the EIL, right? Not every contractor carries it. As Justin indicated, your larger contractors would carry that no problem. So your Cocos and your David Browns would probably carry that no problem. It's your smallest contractors that would not, and it's a big hit, and in turn it ends up being that we pay more per hour, right? So.
Okay.
But it's a risk. It's a risk whether the municipality wants to take or not, because in the event that there is, that's your issue.
Okay. Understand, Councilor Mellon?
Oh, yeah.
You can understand that the smaller contractors only are going on CGLs instead of having this,
And
including work they do at your own place.
the beautiful part is, those small local contractors are the ones that I'm least worried about. Where I'm worried about, maybe required, is we're gonna ship somebody in from God knows where to do drainage work here, and we don't know anything about them. Trust me, the local contractors, I haven't got a bit of problem with waiving that environmental requirement and the insurance, because they're reputable. We have a bunch of them, reputable, qualified, and good contractors. And if we're gonna, we're gonna eliminate them, because the big guys, they can get that insurance. They can run that over a course of a whole year, and it means nothing to them, just pennies. But, that's the one thing, and this insurance business has gotten me just completely flabbergasted. I'm sick and tired of insurance dictating what we do and what we can do. I'm not saying we don't need insurance, but it's gotten overboard. It's gotten out of control, as far as I'm concerned. It's absolutely infuriating when insurance is gonna run the municipality and we're spending a pile of money, and I don't think it's necessary in this case to have that waiver for environmental services. The other point you made, Justin, about or Shannon, I guess, made about McIntosh and Perry, they have not indicated to us that when they're gonna come up with anything. Have they given us a timeline?
Justin, if you want to, Justin can fill in on
I
this
guess they
conversation.
don't really want to work for South Dundas too much. I'm gonna just bite my tongue right now, Mayor Byveld, before I say something that, anyway, I don't know how we get that information or what the permitting and required out of them. How can we get that out of them? So we can go ahead with some of this drainage work. If they're supposed to be in charge of that, how do we get that out of them if they don't even want to answer our phone calls? I can't understand how a reputable company can be so irresponsible. Sorry. It's unacceptable.
I can have Justin. Justin, can you fill in, council, in regards to your conversation with Lucas, please?
Yep, so through you, Mr. Mayor, I was talking to Lucas last week, and today I emailed him, and essentially we have permits out for, I think, almost every maintenance request we've received this year, so that's up to 12, I believe, and essentially we're at the hands of the DFO to wait back to hear from them on class authorization. So essentially he didn't have any update from his last council meeting because he's still waiting to hear back from the DFO on a lot of the drains that he has out.
DFO, because I never asked a question 4 months and 5 months ago when they were supposed to be doing it.
Was there any timeline on when they asked that question to DFO? Because nobody expects an instant response from DFO.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I can reach out to them and get a timeline of events on each permit that they've filed to get all the appropriate dates, and I'll try to break that up into a little timetable for everybody for the next meeting, perhaps.
Okay, well, I think I don't need to talk any louder about drainage work that's not getting done by our so-called drainage superintendent. No disrespect to you, Justin, because you're the person in the middle right now, but I think Mac Perry is kind of slacking off a little bit, and as I sometimes have to say, some people need an attitude adjustment, and I think Lucas needs one. Councillor Wells, any comments on the differences between using the CGL and the environmental liability
I
insurance?
agree with Councillor Mellon there, like, definitely agree with, waiving stuff like that, environmental stuff. Like, even on jobs I've been on, small jobs, like, we had to show proof that with it, or I wouldn't be able to use my, local contractors. And unfortunately, the ones I use had it, but there's a lot out there that's not gonna pay that premium. So I would have no issue waiving stuff like that, especially with drainage work, at all. And to Councillor Mellon alluded about insurance running things, and I'm fully in agreement with that. Like, it's, I'm not a big insurance lover to start with, but things have to start getting done here. And then another thing, like, even though that there's nothing came back to us, at least it could be, instead of Councillor Mellon have to bring everything up, at least it should have been in the agenda. Well, you know, there's no report. This is the reason why it's not, like, they are just saying, okay, we'll have this, even though it was supposed to be here. The frustration more for you, Mayor, and Councillor Mellon is being farmers and that, but I can see, like, just all the farmers and that, like, we're not getting things done, and I'm not going to be the one here taking the fall for it because we don't have the right information to proceed to get this stuff done. So again, like you said, Mayor, attitude adjustment, and there's a few people in this council that can give attitude adjustments. So I think something has to be done. So that's all I have to say for now.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lewis on the CGL versus environmental insurance.
I think it would only be fair if we dropped it. Then that kind of opens the book for the little contractors, because we do have a pile of little people here. And I'd like to make it equal to everyone on the go. And how often do you hear of a hydraulic hose blowing when they're digging a ditch? You know, so I'm willing to waive it. Now, unless you can change my mind, Mayor.
No, I'm not here to change your mind, Deputy Mayor.
I'm somewhat in conflict only because we have a mechanics report that says the hydraulic hoses blow a lot and we're paying for
Well,
them.
just to let you know, they do break, but I've got a 20-year-old combine. I should touch my head real hard that there's still every hydraulic
doesn't?
hose on it. Now,
Okay.
there's other belts. Every belt's been replaced. Other things have replaced. But, I mean, you know, I'm not, yes, hydraulic hoses can fail. The vast majority of them these days, especially if someone's running fairly new equipment, it is that they do not fail. They're fairly robust. They don't last forever. If, you know, no disrespect to Frank Alt and his work, he had a bunch of old machines, and maybe I would request him to have that. But there's other contractors here that are running nothing older than 5 years, and I'll pretty well guarantee that it's a rare event that a hose blows on them because they're just made that much better these days.
Joking aside, I'm just...
I'm touching my head on
for-
that combine
yeah,
right now.
For me, I think that, you know, sitting at this table, the cost of always having to go to the bigger companies is a perfect example of where we need to set it up so the smaller contractors can do the work that we need to get done, or we'll be paying and waiting for a really long time. So I think that needs to be explored a little bit. I'm not absolutely comfortable writing it off only because I don't know what parameters would be, but if we can come up with some parameters to write off the insurance, I think that's a risk I'm willing to take, as long as there's something in there. McIntosh and Perry, I don't know if in the municipal world, I know provincially we always had a vendor record reporting type thing where you could go on and absolutely bash them if they were really bad. is there a reporting rating service in the municipal world? Because they're all over Ontario.
No, we normally do reference checks as far as the work that they performed.
So
in
we
the
have
past.
absolutely we can't report it anywhere. Well, that
No.
needs to be, maybe the CAOs need to bring that up at different levels, because the idea that you can have somebody that's being paid to do a service that's doing an absolute horrendous service and they can get away with that, I think is absolutely unacceptable. So I don't like the fact they're backing us in the corner. I think whatever needs to be done there, I can also give an attitude adjustment if necessary, but something needs to be done there. That's not fair. It's not fair at all. So that needs to be there, and like I said, I am comfortable as long as there's some sort of parameters in play to kind of risk management, manage it a little bit. I'm okay taking the risk because the work needs to be done, but I just need, it can't just be a blank. There needs to be something that we're able to do.
Okay. You're just a clerk. Councillor Wells?
Just one last comment to Deputy Mayor there. As far as the environmental thing go, to eliminate that, we just require them to carry a spill kit, 5-gallon pill, absorb it, and back their hi-ho, we're good to go.
What is it?
Just a little comment.
Have a spill kit.
Oh, spill kit. Okay.
And if the hose accidentally breaks or whatever breaks, just dump it, absorb it, we're good to go.
Oh, there you go.
Anyways, that's just one comment. Thank
Justin,
Mayor.
you got your hand up, and then we need to wrap this up.
Yes, through you, Mayor. I just want to point out that this contract that I currently have out is till the end of 2022. So this isn't just one job that we're not going to be requiring to have the environmental insurance on. It's going to be every job under $20,000 from now to the end of 2022, which could potentially be upwards of 15, 16 jobs. So I just want to throw that out there. And most of our regular tenders do require it. So I know like the road clearing tender requires it. Most of our larger tenders that involve equipment does require environmental insurance on it. So just a little bit extra information
Okay.
for you there.
Jeff, are you still on the line? I see his name, I don't hear him.
Yes, I am. Go ahead.
I have a question for you. Does our
Go ahead.
subcontractor that does our roadside mowing have this insurance?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, all my tenders which I submit, roadside grass cutting, snow removal, which includes all your little guys, as I've heard reference numerous times tonight, they all have to carry environmental insurance to be able to bid on for snow clearing or for roadside mowing. Yes, they do.
And that's on as a separate addition to their policies, no over
It's $1
CGL.
million, through you, Mr. Mayor, it's $1 million liability that they have to carry just for those one-offs, as Justin referenced. It's more hydraulic oil or fuel in the catch basins or an environmental cleanup on the side of the road. It could be anything. It could be fuel. It could be the vehicle catches on fire. There's numerous things that can impact environmental cleanup.
Okay, Justin, one more question. Do you have any knowledge of how many companies have A, looked at our tender, and B, have already put in their, or getting close to putting in their bids?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So I have 2 bids submitted right now, and I have probably 3 that are seriously looking at it.
Okay.
And they're all local.
Okay. Madam Clerk, insurance lady, you haven't left the building yet, have you?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to clarify, it's not only for a hose breaking, but if you do anything to offend SNC or DFO, you're going to be fined. So if you pick up a fish and they find out you picked up a fish in that drain, you're going to be fined, correct?
Yeah, that has nothing to do with the insurance. An
Absolutely
oil
it
spill.
does, absolutely. So they'll be fined, we'll be fined if they don't have it, so they'll be fined. So we can reduce that EIL, I think we have it at 2 million right now.
1 million.
It's at $1 million,
Million,
so
okay.
it's not that, to me, it's not very much money to start with. But,
Yeah, and the
but the
maximum-
cost of it is exorbitant for the $1 million compared to CGL.
So the maximum fine, my understanding, is $250,000. So why don't we reduce it even to 500,000, the EIL? That would make it a little bit more palatable maybe. Just so you're covered, because I don't, like you said, a turtle, a fish, anything could be dug up in there and then.
Excuse me, I can't hear, if anyone can hear me, I am not.
Okay, hold it, Councilor Wells, just hang on, one at a time, or we're gonna get into a mess here. I'm gonna turn it back.
Didn't hear.
You got more to say before I go?
No, Councillor Walls didn't hear because I don't think her mic was on, that's why.
You not? Did you not have your mic on?
I don't. I didn't, sorry.
Okay, then you have to explain it again, please.
So EIL is not only carried for a hose spill, it's also carried because of DFO and SNC. So if they pick up a turtle or a fish or something and they're, I don't know, because it got in the way, we could be fined for that. You have to watch for all those things. It's not just a hose spill. Also, we can reduce from the 2 million or the 1 million, whatever we have it at, because the maximum fine for either one of those is $250,000. So we can reduce it to 500 or 250 or whatever we think they can manage. Just a suggestion.
Okay, you heard that, Councilor Wells, this time?
Yes, I did, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Mellon? Is that your head or your knee?
That's my knee. I wanted it to be my head, but it's not very politically correct. Smash your head against the table on a council meeting. But anyway, I'm not totally oblivious to the fact that we need insurance and the world revolves around insurance. It's just that when it becomes so overbearing, I could live with I would drop it to 250. If that's the maximum, I would drop it to 250 and go for there. That's just a comment on my part, Mayor Byvels.
Councilor Wells?
And, yeah, I have no issue with dropping 50. If, the few contractors out there that doesn't have the environmental insurance, if they really wanted to get the job to go out and get a $250,000 policy, I don't know personally myself what it would cost. I know what liability insurance costs, but if that, and I agree with Madam Clerk there, it's just not a hose. There's a whole mess of things there that could happen. So if I would like to reduce it to the minimum we need, if it's 250, I'm good with that. And it comes to the point where, okay, if the little guys in our municipality want to bid on jobs like that, at least everyone's covered. So I can live with that at 250. The minimum, what we need. Thank you.
Councilor Lewis?
Thank you, Madam Clerk, for the clarification. I did not know if he picked up a fish that there was a fine handed in there. I did not realize that. So I thank you for that. And you said the biggest fine handed out is $250?
That's correct.
Then I can most likely live with it in there for $250,000.
Yeah. Hearing the digging experts around the table, I think that is risk managing it, where we're looking at what the risk is, what the reward is, and I think that's a very good suggestion, Madam Clerk. So I would think that we should give that a go and see where it ends up. Hopefully they only do one fish, not.
I think 250 is a little lean, but I certainly we got to start somewhere. I'm going to suggest, Justin, that if you change that as an addendum, you have to extend the time because some of those small ones will now have to look at if they want to go and add that insurance and how much it's gonna cost. I got a number for 2 million and it's enough, but I don't know what the number would be for 250. Of course, it's not equal proportion, of course. It's just not the way the world works, so. Okay, so council direction is to reduce that. We'll keep it, but we need to reduce it somewhat. Anything further? Okay, and the same with Mcphee. We're having a meeting with another possible candidate to do our drainage work shortly, and there's going to be some serious consideration to deal with this issue. And to be honest, Councilor Mel and myself are yelling loudly, but we feel it from the farm community, mainly as landowners, that no drainage work's been done in South Dundas in 3 years now. It is now September the 13th and nothing is ready to roll, and that's a challenge to have to defend. I can't defend it. I will not defend it. We haven't done our jobs, so. Okay, moving on. Councilor Mellon, cemetery 911 signs.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Bylaw. This has been something, and I should have maybe said I was working today, but it was brought to my attention late this morning that our cemeteries, at least the two back by Princeton Dixon's, and I believe probably none of them have 911 signs on it. There was an incident back at Spruce Haven on Saturday where an individual fainted, an ambulance had to be called, and there was some, I guess, difficulty, from what I understand, in the ambulance locating the cemetery. So I was wondering if council would entertain the thought of asking staff to at least look at if any of our cemeteries have 911 signs, civic numbers, to respond for our emergency services. And, you know, the cost, a breakdown of what it would cost, you know, to possibly put the signs up. I have an idea what it costs for, under Project Emily, minus the reduction from the counties. But anyways, I think it's probably a good idea because, you know, when you stop and think about it, and I'd never even thought about it this before, never even dawned on me that, you know, when you've got an older population maybe going to a cemetery, you know, under the stress of a funeral and a graveside service, whatever, you know, there could be incidents. And I don't know how many cemeteries we have in South Dundas. There's active ones and there's closed ones, but, you know, somebody could become injured. It could be a heart attack. You know, even somebody you know, visiting a plot or a site of a family member or something could happen, fall, hurt themselves. So I think it's probably something I would like us to look at, just, you know, at the cost. Something, you know, there's no building on there, and that's probably what triggered it when when we put the civic numbers in originally back whenever. But I think it's maybe something that would maybe it was a little bit of an oversight. No, I wouldn't, like I say, it was really not an oversight because I never even thought about it until the day when this individual told me about the incident where the ambulance had to be called. So that's what I'm bringing up, Mayor Bylaws. I just wonder what council thinks, if it's a worthwhile exercise for staff to count up their cemeteries. I don't think probably any of them have a civic number or a 911 sign, and maybe come back with a number, what it would cost us, and maybe, you know, look at budget time next year or something. You know, implement something, but it's probably a worthwhile exercise. You know, somebody could fall and get hurt at a cemetery, and hate like blazes to have them not be, you know, found or whatever at a cemetery.
You better stop right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you put your foot in your mouth. 'Cause
Yeah,
I'm
okay,
halfway
thank you.
there too.
Yeah.
Okay, so Councilor Mellon's requesting the staff look at the possibility of South Dundas working with the cemetery boards on instituting civic signs at their location. Does any member of council have any issues with that? I don't want to discuss whether we want signs or not. I think we need the staff report first. So are we good with staff, directing staff to come with a report on that? Councilor Wells?
Yeah, I'm good with that, Mayor.
Okay. Then staff can do that
Thank you.
within 4 weeks, good? Not the next council meeting, though.
No, no,
What kind of timeline you want? I think we might as well put it down now, because we're discussing a
no,
lot
I
of
mean, this is
timelines
something that's been
tonight.
going on since, well, forever, cemetery.
When do you want it done by?
Well, if we can
When do
have
you want it
some,
done by?
budget time,
Okay.
budget time, give us a number
And
of
if,
budget
and
time.
if something's here beforehand, then at least we
Yeah,
have
if-
some reference to
if,
start
you
with,
know.
whether it has to be in budget or not, okay?
Yep.
Thank you. I don't want to be pushy, but I just don't want it to be, oh, well, council said to do it, but didn't else win, so I got a win on there, thank you. So tonight we had, Staff Sergeant Simon and Hardy, Simon Hardy, and
Inspector.
Inspector
Hemrick.
Hamerick here, sorry. It's getting tiring already and it's not 9 o'clock yet. Looking for a letter of support for the mental health initiative that they are doing. They want to seek funding from the province and are requesting us as a council of municipalities South Dundas to send them a letter of support. We all supported it at the time, so does Madam Clerk have a resolution in that regard? Please, yes, you put your mic on, thank you.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, second by Councillor Mellon, that the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas support the Mobile Crisis Response Team to continue improving mental health services in SD&G, and that Council agrees with the team to continue working on stable base funding from the Ministry of Health.
Sound good?
Or other sources, I would put. Do you want just?
No, I
you
don't
just
want
wanna
to, sort of-
put
I
Ministry of Health?
want to, yeah, I think we should
Okay.
pin, I think county council would like that too. I don't,
Okay.
we don't have a problem with it, but I mean, I think we all agree that that's who has to pay. Who else is going to pay? You have any idea who else could pay?
Well, I mean,
You're giving the province
but
an
you
out.
say Ministry of Health, you're boxing them in. It could also be the Ministry of Correction. What are the OPP under? Corrections and whatever.
Solicitor General. Here's a suggestion. Why don't we
Solicitor
wo-
General would be good too.
Why don't we work?
Three things.
We will work with the OPP on who it needs to go to.
Okay.
How's that?
Because I think if you box in the Ministry of Health, they're just going to say it's not our problem, it's not the
We'll
OPP.
come up, generalize the resolution, and then between
It's great otherwise, but I just don't
them
want to.
and I assume Kalen working on a letter that I can sign.
Why don't I just say from the provincial ministries?
There we go.
Okay?
Works for me.
Amen. The province of Ontario.
The province of Ontario.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know where you were talking other sources, because
No.
that's just giving them an out. They'll just say, well, you can get from other sources. Federal government's throwing money left, right, and center right now, so,
The province of Ontario has been talking about mental health
yeah.
because it's trendy and it looks good, but they actually need to fund this.
True. And if the feds are true to their word, every
Yeah.
party is supporting mental health, and there should be money flowing down eventually, so.
Yeah.
Okay, as long as we get something that makes sense, you need to reread it?
Do I?
Are we all good?
I'm good.
Okay,
Province of
all
Ontario.
heard any other comments? Councilor Wells, you're good?
I'm good.
Okay, then, order the resolution, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion carries. Thank you very much. Any notices of motion this evening?
No, sir.
Okay, ratification bylaw, please.
Moved by Councillor Mellon, second by Councillor Wells, that bylaw number 2021-90, being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
All heard the motion, those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion carries. Before I ask the clerk to read the agenda, the adjournment resolution, I'd like to thank council for their efforts tonight. Yeah, it's been a long day, and I've been working too hard on combines and not used to it anymore. I'd like to thank staff for all their reports. I'd like to thank Rebecca from the leader for reporting on our affairs, and I'd like to thank the audience for your participation in our meetings. Madam Clerk?
Moved by Councillor Lewis, second by Councillor Mellon, that council now adjourn to meet again at the call of the chair.
All heard the motion, those in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion carries. Thank you, Lloyd. Have a safe trip back.
Yeah, we'll see you later, guys.
Yeah, take care. Still daylight
Okay.
there.
Oh, yeah, it is. Okay.
Yorkton's